the last month and a half since we met last. First is, I know we just appointed our police commission task force to review and to give guidance on, what does a new police commission look like. I know the membership was selected early, I think it was late October, early November. They've already started meeting the last 2 months, then meeting every couple of weeks. And that work should go throughout to early next year, and hopefully I think the goal is by mid 2021 for work to come out and kind of help set up the start of a new commission to replace the current Civil Service Commission. This current one is obsolete, to say the least, while the new task force, hopefully the new commission is created to kind of replace that and to be more robust for the city's needs for now. So that's been ongoing. We've approved the budget for next year in our meeting last week, sorry, time switch up me. And also we approved a new HRA levy. The levy would go towards a position that will be focusing on, affordable housing and economic development. So that levy, that HRS levy will cover that, and hopefully once that's approved, start a process of hiring that early next year. So that's really exciting. Have someone to focus exclusively on that kind of work. Give our staff like Mark and some extra help in that process, and to kind of get it more moving on that front. Those are the two biggest things that stick out to mind. I know Mark could top in if I forgot something that happened last month and a half since last met, but that's really exciting. The budget is in place and there's a slight levy increase. I think we went to around 3%, keeping in mind the current economic condition, but these to fund, for example, compensation increases based on compensation study as well. So we definitely try to make sure that we, try to hold a line during these times where it's still pretty uncertain, but there's kind of hope knowing that the state's financial situation isn't as dire as they thought it was. So hopefully we're expecting that 2021 would, hopefully there's a decent recovery in process with that too. Mark, you want to throw in anything that I may have left out or forgot that you know of?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Harris. Maybe just a couple other quick comments. We also have our facility study that is ongoing here. Probably will be in process through about June. Our citizen and business task force has met once in November, and we'll meet again in December next week. At this point, our consultant group has reviewed all of the city facilities. Brookview is not part of that. Obviously, that's a brand new building, but they've gone through and looked at all of our facilities. They've kind of done an audit, so we know sort of what our starting point is, and what some of the challenges are. A next step in this process is very important, and I would encourage all of you to help us out here if you can. But tomorrow, hopefully if everything goes well, we will be launching a video to do some community outreach, and it's going to feature a whole bunch of staff members talking about a whole bunch of different things. Dave Kaiser from CCX is kind of emceeing the video, if you will. But the idea is to really try to lay this out for the community in general, so people understand what it is we're undertaking, and then complete a survey. And that survey will help us to go back and get more community feedback and work that into our plan. So that will be a community engagement session 1, and then there'll be another community engagement event early next year as well. So we'd appreciate your help with that. Maybe just a couple other things quickly to touch on. I know Hennepin County has rolled out some more funding to help local businesses. I believe their next round of funding actually closed on the 1st, but they also have a program called Elevate Business, and they're pushing that out. I know our communications department will be pushing out information on that. And this is really technical assistance for our businesses to kind of try to get through this pandemic. Other counties have contacted Hennepin County, and I think I'm going to say it sounds like there's a desire to kind of grow this and maybe make this a permanent type thing. So I would encourage you to check that out. And then lastly, I'll just mention that the city was successful in getting bonding dollars for pedestrian improvements and underpass at Douglas and Highway 55. So we're starting to work on that and do some outreach and do design work, and that's gonna be a big important project that has been on the city's goal list for many years. So I think I'll wrap it up and leave it at that.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mark. A quick question for you, Mark and Maurice. I was just curious: is this budget process normally finished in December?
So the process starts way back in August when we first saw the proposed budget. So it's a few months process, and so we get the recommendation from the city staff, council. We review it and go through it, try to get public comment on it. And so, we see from proposed and, prioritize what we want. The original proposal, I think levy was around, I want to say around 5 to 6. And so we decide, what things we, really need to have versus, the nice, obviously. And so August, September is that process. We council manager meeting, and then it goes to, we review it again one more time in November for final patches in December. So it starts in the late summer and goes to December. It's a final approval of it. So it's not just a one-time thing.
Okay, so you Rachel pull out. I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's just the part that the public really starts. Staff actually starts working on the budget back in like April and starts to pull all those things together. So it takes a good year, 3/4 of a year, as Councilmember Harris noted. So it's a long process.
Yeah.
So basically, you're able to get your budget done in its normal cycle during COVID. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work with staff and with council reviewing too. And so it was a very, we made some tough choices, knowing what's going on and trying to be responsible, obviously. So it's, staff does a great job in getting prepared for us and takes our questions, and especially with 2 new council members on this year during COVID, looking at it over. So it was a very good process though. I think it was very smooth and we were able to accomplish. So, if you have any questions about the budget at all, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be able to take your questions about that or comments.
Okay. Oh, look, my camera went on. How about that? I'll keep it on. So, with that, thank you very much for the report. Why don't we have the schools start? Who wants to go first? Christine, Betsy?
Sure, I can.
On the schools?
I can. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Warkamp, Executive Director of Community Education and High School Activities Director Supervisor for Robbinsdale Area Schools. So it's been a crazy year. So as you all know, our district began the year in distance learning. We had overwhelming feedback from our parents and teachers that they felt this was the safest way to start our year. In the meantime, we were looking at developing our hybrid model so we could bring kids back. We had intention, the numbers were dropping, as you know, in the fall. And so we were preparing our plan and getting ready to bring our kids back. In fact, they were getting so low, we thought we might be able to bring all of our elementary kids back face to face. And the minute we started to set a deadline for that, the numbers started to go up. And then we decided, well, we'll bring our elementary back hybrid, leave our secondary in distance learning, and set a date, and the numbers skyrocketed. So we stayed in the distance learning model because the numbers hit well over 100, and in some cases they're now nearing 200. So when I say that, I say 100 cases per 10,000. So we look at various pieces of data to make that decision. We look at Hennepin County data. We look at our 7 municipalities. for their data. And we look at what our spread is amongst the community and if there is school spread. I can tell you we haven't had school spread. Any of the COVID situations that have happened have been through community spread. Through this time, we did get through fall sports. You know, football had a bunch of drama around football and volleyball, and parents protesting at the Capitol because they had intended to postpone football till the spring. So they brought it back with a condensed season. Now we've postponed the winter to begin. So far, the governor said December 18th. We don't know if he'll come back and stretch that a little bit further. Again, the numbers are still quite high for most of Minnesota. So we'll see about that. For right now, our secondary for sure will be in distance learning until January 23rd. We'll see about elementary. Right now, we just aren't giving dates for anything because of what happened this fall with those numbers skyrocketing. So we watch all of the data. We work with our Department of Health. We actually have a team from the Department of Health and Minnesota Department of Ed that helps guide us in that decision making. They have teams set out for every district across the state to help with the decision making of changing models. So we've been working diligently to prepare. We have our hybrid model ready to go for elementary, and we've just done the final steps for secondary. So if we do need to make that shift, we'd be prepared. I can tell you because of our numbers of fewer parents opting into the distance learning school when it comes to our high schools and middle schools, in order to maintain 6 feet distance for our students in a hybrid model, we're actually only able to bring students back at 25% capacity. So that means that the model for middle and high school is an AABB CCDD model. So kids come back 2 days every 2 weeks in a hybrid model. So working through all those processes to develop those models and just trying to stay with our distance learning right now, making sure kids are staying engaged. We're doing much better than we were in the spring. That was definitely a reactionary period. It was a crisis. Now we're into more of a proactive, trying to make sure we're doing well with our students and keeping them active and engaged. It's really good for some of our students. It's not good for others. We know that. And so we're working diligently to follow up with those students where it's not working well to try to do a better job of engaging them. I can tell you our critical care at Robbinsdale is sitting at about 400 kids right now that actually do come into our schools every day. We are managing that as best we can. I can tell you that that's where we've had COVID situations where we've had pods of children and staff that have to go on quarantine for 14 days. We've also found that with athletics, that in November, before the shutdown of athletics, we were dealing with lots of COVID situations with maybe certain players, or it could even be certain teams, like a JV team or a varsity team or a 9B team. And so you'd end up with one team quarantining for 10 or 14 days, depending on the situation. I'll be honest, when the governor called off athletics, I was okay with that. Our ADs were okay with that. We were dealing with COVID situations every single day. It was crazy. So it's a challenge, but I tell you, our nursing staff are outstanding. We've been noted at Robbinsdale from Minnesota Department of Health of being impressed with how well we contact trace. So we do a very good job of limiting our pods, and we're very good about knowing who's with whom so we can quarantine properly. So that's kind of what I have. I just want to add one other thing. We have developed our legislative platform for our school district. Our school board has approved that. We are looking at 2 messages that we will be going to our legislators with, and one is around emergency needs, and that's COVID situation. They gave us some breaks last spring on how we handle financials, allowing us to use cross dollars that you normally couldn't. So there's certain funds that can only be used for certain things. They loosened up some of those rules to help us get through our spring. We're asking they continue that for 1 more year. They also allowed us to not worry about maintenance of effort for our special education staff, so that we could utilize special education staff for non-special education services, which doing this critical care, it would help immensely. They only gave us that through the end of June. Well, obviously the pandemic has extended. So we're asking them to extend those kinds of things. And then of course, going back and asking them to fix our flawed funding system in our educational system is flawed in how it's funded. We're asking them to make those fixes. One of those asks is to tie our revenue streams to inflation. We're losing about $500 per pupil unit because they haven't tied it to inflation. So those are just some of the asks that we were going to the legislature with. There has been a finance working group that's involved superintendents, school board members, other business managers from across the state who've actually put together a comprehensive financial review to the governor's office saying you need to fix the financial, how you fund schools. We don't know what he'll take of that. He wouldn't take it all because it's billions of dollars. But so anyway, that is kind of what's happening with the legislative world in education, and I can answer any questions.
Questions, anyone? Okay, well, thank you. Great report, Christine. A lot of information, especially about how the hybrid thing. It's do all the schools are slightly different, or is there some continuity in the Twin Cities?
Well, every school is handling it differently.
Yeah, and what we found is, you know, when it comes to hybrid, like for example, Osseo, right, our neighboring district, was able to design their hybrid for high school at 50% capacity, but they had almost 30% of their students opt in for distance learning school. So you can separate them because you have far fewer students. We only have like 10%. So that's where some of the issues come and how your buildings are designed. We have 2 high schools, and our high schools are designed so differently that they're going to have to reshape classes that you offer, right? Because it's very complex. But one thing we heard loudly and clearly from our families was we need the older kids to be on the same schedule as the younger kids, because they oftentimes are there for daycare situations, right? So when our high school kids are on an AA model, the elementary siblings need to be on that same model. We did discover, however, that our elementary students could be back at 50% capacity, but based on the number of kids that have opted into DL at elementary and how those buildings are designed. So they would run an AABB schedule and just be in 2 days a week every week. So yeah, it's very complex.
Betsy.
Well, Gary, we actually have Hopkins School Board member Katie O'Shea Peterson here, so I think she can go next for the Hopkins report.
Thanks, Betsy.
Okay.
Things in Hopkins shifted right before Thanksgiving. Last time I spoke with you guys, we were in a hybrid model, at least with our elementary students. Secondary they were not, due to, kind of as Christine mentioned, constraints on our facilities. But we shifted right before Thanksgiving to full distance learning due to the number of cases per 10,000. And we will be in full distance learning through January 25th, which is the end of our term. And we're really hoping that at that point we can re-up the hybrid model. That all feels kind of business as usual at this point, honestly, because we have started our budgeting cycle similar to the city. It's a really long and intense process. I heard Maurice talking and it felt very familiar. Our budgeting cycle does fall at a little bit of a different timeline, right? June 30th is our fiscal year end. So we're in a different phase of that. Just this past week, we received our comprehensive annual financial report from Clifton Larson Allen for our 19 and 20 results, which actually were much better than many of us anticipated. We saw a little bit of growth in our funds, and we were able to really stay fiscally responsible and hit our budgets. 2020 and 2021 do not look as rosy for us in Hopkins and frankly across the state. Again, as Christine mentioned, enrollment drives our funding, and many families, to the tune of about 100 families or 100 students in Hopkins have opted out of the district, which is overall declining enrollment means overall declining funds for our school district. In a time when frankly, we were already in a difficult financial position due to the legislature not growing the funding that we're getting from the state. And in addition to that, really seeing a lot of unfunded mandates, and those have really grown with COVID, you know, providing care to frontline workers, children free of charge. We're not receiving funding from the state for that. Our meal program, many different things. So we started our 2020-2021 budgeting cycle looking, and we're right now looking at worst case scenario, which means we won't be seeing any additional COVID relief funds from the state or feds, that we will be seeing a slight uptick in our enrollment, but still looking at a decline. And assuming that legislature won't be giving us any type of major increases, we're looking at about a $4 million shortfall for next year, which means we have about $4 million in cuts to make worst case scenario. It's a hard time. We made about 2 million in cuts last year and it was incredibly painful. And this is gonna be twice as painful. So I know that we are not unique in Hopkins. This is something that every district is seeing, thanks to our legislature, thanks to enrollment numbers. But that's our big ticket item right now. So we also just approved our Legislative Action Coalition platform just on Tuesday night. I'm sorry, I have a cat who wants to be a part of our call. Our platform this year is restart, redefine, rethink, reboot, and reimagine anything but repeat. So they're going to the board really asking for our legislature to rethink education and how we've been doing education and in light of COVID. So I'm impressed with that. I'm excited. We'll have our legislative breakfast coming up in January. And then the last thing I would say is that we do have an open board seat at Hopkins. We had Chris Latondras was elected to the Hennepin County Board of Commissioners for District 6, which opens up a spot for us. We actually received 17 applications, which is mind-blowing for the open board seat. And we'll be doing 3 days of interviews and should announce the new board member in early January. I think that's pretty much everything, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions for Katie? Thank you. Very good report, Katie.
Yeah.
And Katie, just to clarify this, oh, sorry, Gary. This open seat is an appointed seat because Chris Latondras only had a year left on his term. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, frankly, I think that the 17 applications are twofold. It's a year appointment because Chris would be up for re-election next year, as well as the fact that there's no campaigning necessary, right? So I think because of that and,
Huge.
you know, the message within Hopkins as far as really combating and creating an anti-racist environment, as well as creating a new educational paradigm that's really resonating with our residents and people really want to get involved. And so I think that it's a lot of that. I was shocked. I mean, I thought we would get 0 applications, to be honest with you, because this is not a fun time to be a school board member. But we got 17 and I'm super inspired by that.
Is the reduction in enrollment a demographic thing?
You know, so we are right in the middle of reviewing the shift. We actually reached out to all 100 families and had personal interviews to determine, you know, why they left. In some cases, honestly, it was people moving overseas, families just moving out of districts. We saw a large number of families move overseas. There was a large number of families who chose to delay kindergarten. So, you know, those kids who have summer birthdays that could have gone either way. And then there was a large number who chose parochial or private school educations where they could have full in student or in-person care. As far as the demographic lines, I think that was Daniel that asked the question. I have not seen those numbers yet, but we should be seeing that report on that attrition shortly.
I can tell you in Robbinsdale, we too have had a decrease in enrollment and are projecting that as well moving forward, which does have a huge impact on your budget situation. We've noticed as well that the low enrollment is hugely impacted by the number of fewer kindergartners. Parents just didn't want to start this year is what we're hearing for feedback. They thought, we'll just wait another year. It's not mandatory. And we did have a lot that opted into private schools that were putting their kids back in person full right at the beginning. So kind of a mix of that has happened as well for Robbinsdale. And we're seeing that across the metro most assuredly. Greater Minnesota, I think, has had some, but, you know, depending on what part of Minnesota you're in, a lot of the school districts, for example, west of here, have been in person for most of the year, especially at elementary, and that makes a difference. So,
Yeah, St. Louis Park's enrollment is down also.
Yeah, from what I've heard, almost every single district is seeing decline enrollment from a public school perspective. I actually have not heard of a single one. I know Wayzata is down to the tune of about 500 students. It's just really tough. And so one of the things that our Legislative Action Coalition is asking for as well, and frankly, we should all be asking for as involved citizens, is that the funding for our districts is based off of our 1920 enrollment numbers versus our 2021 enrollment numbers, because the position that they're putting us in is really it's going to affect the number of educators we have, and it's going to reduce the number of support staff that we have. That's exactly where it's going to come from. So that's one of the big things we're pushing for, is to have our funding based off of our enrollment from 19 and 20.
Robbinsdale is asking for that as well, as is the AMSD, MSBA, all of the MCEA. We're all asking for hold harmless in a couple of different areas. Held harmless on enrollment, held harmless with, so for example, VPK and School Readiness Plus or early childhood education grants that come up, they're ending this year. We're asking that they continue those more in a hold harmless situation. So asking for a lot of that so we can get ourselves back together again and get ourselves, once this vaccine takes place and hopefully we're all back in school, we have to, if we have a huge budget impact with that, it's going to really slow down our ability to serve children and get them back into where they, to help with loss of learning, to get them back acclimated to our schools. I mean, the last thing we need is less staff. And that's really what it comes down to. 78% of school budgets are staff. So yeah, it's a common message from schools right now.
Betsy.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning. Betsy Anderson from the Perpich Center for Arts Education. Wanted to start off with piggybacking a little bit on something that Mr. Novinsky said earlier about the Highway 55 underpass project that the city is starting. That has a direct impact on Perpich. That's actually right at our front door. So we actually have a meeting with Mark, with a couple other city staff, and with the construction company on Monday to talk about what that project looks like and the impact to Perpich. So that underpass happens right at 55 and Douglas, and it will actually restructure that area right by the stoplights, turn that into a roundabout, and that is right in front of our building. It will impact our parking lot, so we'll be involved in that conversation as well. Just like Robbinsdale, just like Hopkins, Perpich Arts High School is now in full distance learning. We did make that shift early November. I want to say like the 9th or 10th. And it's tough. It's tough in any situation. It's a unique challenge to teach art and to be in an arts infused environment in a distance setting. And it's not only tough from the curriculum perspective, but it's tough for the mental health and for the wellness of not only our students, but our staff. This is not what we signed up for, so it's tricky. One of the shifts that we have made recently is to implement a Wellness Wednesday. So our Wednesdays now for our students are a non-curricular day. They do have, they have to all gather together at a Google Meet. They have they have a video that they watch, or they have a presentation that they watch together that focuses more on not necessarily curriculum, but the mental health aspect, mental wellness, self-care, those kinds of things. And it's a great opportunity for students to connect directly with staff to make sure that they're catching up on assignments and not falling behind. So yesterday was our second Wellness Wednesday, and I would imagine that will continue as we are in our full distance setting. I want to let everybody know that we just, it's tricky. It's tricky when you can't have people in your building if you're trying to have admissions work for your school. And so what we did is we just created a virtual tour. We produced that video with Captivate Media, which is a Golden Valley business. The YouTube link is there. I encourage you all to watch it. It's less than 3 minutes. It's fun. You can, if you haven't walked through the Perpich Arts High School building, now's your chance to do it from your desk. So you can see all of our cool spaces. When we are on the other side of this, I wanted to remind everybody that our spaces are available. We rent out our spaces all the time. And because we are a state agency, we don't make money off of those rentals. We're only allowed to charge for our costs. So we're a very economical option right in your community with the great parking. But now's your chance to take a look at some of those spaces. And then if you would like me, Gary, I can transition right into a quick Rotary update.
I was just going to ask if you would, because I think Michelle had to check out. So, oh no, there's Michelle too.
There.
So, yeah, that she's back. So, yes,
Very
please
good.
do.
Okay, so I'm switching hats. And now I'm Betsy Anderson from the Golden Valley Rotary. Great to see you all. We annually, we name a Golden Valley business as our business of the year. And I believe in an earlier meeting, I did mention that Best Wishes Floral was the business that we selected. We just created a video to highlight them, to celebrate them. And I just popped that YouTube link in the chat. You guys are gonna have all sorts of YouTube videos from me today. So please feel free to take a look. Michelle Ness from Prism is our Rotary president, and she walked over. She was over at Best Wishes, interviewing with Frank, and gives you a little aspect of the store itself, and you get to hear from Frank about the business. So fun little video to watch, and we're just really proud to be able to elevate them and the good work that they do in the community. And Michelle, do you want to say something too?
I guess no, I just wanted to be ready in case you were going to call on me for something. Yeah, we were excited to Best Wishes, and they are great to have, very grateful to have the support and promo for their business.
And we actually did a partnership with them, a fundraiser right before Thanksgiving. They created these beautiful floral arrangements with autumnal colors, perfect for the Thanksgiving table that you had with no one else. And that was a fun little partnership with them, and we sold about 35 arrangements, and so those went out to different parts of the community and hopefully brightened some days. And the money that was raised from that goes to Rotary and Rotary's efforts to help nonprofits and people in need in the community. We meet every Tuesday. You are all welcome every Tuesday, 12:15. We're meeting virtually. We always put our meeting information on our website, goldenvalleyrotary.com. goldenvalleyrotary.com. We also put it on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You can find us everywhere, but you are more than welcome to join us. We would love to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle and Betsy. Victoria, any updates with the chamber?
Well, I will just.
Oh, well, wait a minute. We lost your voice.
Oh no, is that gone?
You're super tiny.
Your volume's very low.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Shout.
Okay. Yes, I have it all the way up. Well, I will just briefly illuminate some of our events that are coming up. As Mark mentioned, we do have a Elevate Business HC initiative, and we have our last webinar today. Those are free webinars. I encourage you guys to hop on. Just go to our website. We also have peer-to-peer networks with that initiative as well. These are all free of charge, so please do go to our website, and we'd love to have you join us for those pieces. Tomorrow is our Issues and Insights legislative webinar. We will be previewing the Biden administration, so we'd love to have you join us for that as well. And now, as you know, now that we are the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, we are all kind of getting our positions situated here, and I'll be moving to the events and programs position. That has been, you know, something I've done at Twin West for years and years, and so that's what I'll be doing now. And so now I would love to turn this over to Brent Pavia, who will be taking over this meeting and your group here going forward. So I thought we could have Brent introduce himself, and if you guys could also, if we could go around and introduce you guys as well, so that he can kind of get to know you guys, and you know, having this meeting going forward into 2021, this will be a way for you guys to grow the program and find out what works best for you. So I'll turn it over to Brent, and then we'll go from there.
Brent, before you get started, could I ask everybody to introduce themselves so we can go around the circle? And so, because we're going to hear about you, but I think it's only fair that you learn where these people are there, you're staring at your computer screen at you.
That's great.
So I'll start with you, Dan.
Okay, Dan Goldman. In Golden Valley, I have investments in a couple income properties. One's an office warehouse and one's an office building.
Thank you. Maurice.
Maurice Harris, City Council member for City Golden Valley.
Mark.
Mark Marowitz. I'm a commercial banker with Midwest One Bank at our office in Golden Valley. Longtime resident of Golden Valley. I'm also on the board of PRISM and recently joined the City of Golden Valley Facilities Task Force.
Margaret.
There we go. Margaret Silva, Pukron Massage and Atacama Sauna. So I do therapeutic massage, and then I have a wood burning outdoor sauna for clients to use as well.
Thank you. Betsy.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Anderson, Golden Valley Rotarian. I work at Purpose Center for Arts Education, and we live in Golden Valley, and we have a kiddo in the Hopkins Public Schools.
Christine.
Good morning, Christine Werkamp, Executive Director of Community Education and High School Activity Director Supervisor for Robbinsdale Area Schools.
Katie.
Good morning. I'm Katie O'Shea Peterson, Hopkins School Board member, Golden Valley resident.
And Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Ness, Executive Director of PRISM and President of the Golden Valley Rotary. As you can see, there's little lights on it. We're starting our holiday toy shop today. So we've got toys galore here. It's so cool and so fun. We're going to be doing it for the next 2 weeks. So jingle, jingle.
Mark.
Mark Nowinski. I'm the Physical Development Director at the City of Golden Valley.
And I'm Gary Aiken. I'm President of Tonka Financial, a Rotarian of Golden Valley, and a member of the Chamber. And I'm proud to be hosting or chairing the meeting. So Brent, it's yours. Tell us all about you and what the future holds.
Well, me personally is probably a boring tale, but I'll give you some relative highlights. First of all, I apologize for not being able to join at the beginning of the meeting. As Victoria may have mentioned, it's like for all of you, it's kind of a crazy time for us at the Chamber. We probably have too much on our plates, but in a sense, that's a good problem to have in terms of us being really needed. I think, hearing the bits and pieces from the conversation when I did join, the challenging times also reflects on, the critical need for the work that we do. And so, that is gratifying, even though it's exhausting at times, I think, for all of us. Yeah, a little bit about me. So I started working for the Regional Chamber about 9 years ago, leading membership efforts. And for those of you who don't know, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber has had an interesting kind of structure, small and yet complicated, playing above our weight in a lot of sense. I certainly had a lot of connection with partner organizations, but before I get into that, we, the Regional Chamber, started a model about 20 years ago, bringing in some affiliates under it, the Bloomington Chamber and then the Northeast Chamber. And the idea was to share services, membership being one of them, but also to keep a strong local brand, identity, programming, advisory boards, that sort of thing. It was better in theory than practice, I'll say, from my perspective, in that I think internally and externally, we didn't do a good job of fulfilling the mission of what that meant. Fast forward several years over working with some leadership that was very concerned. I don't think this has changed. From a regional perspective, what we've been doing since I've worked for the Chamber is really to advocate for the Twin Cities metro area on economic development, business advocacy, and what that's meant. And I don't think this is going to change in my working lifetime, is concentrating around workforce and all that goes into that, around education, development, diversity, equity, inclusion, all sorts of things that enhance workforce development, transit and transportation, certainly, increasingly housing affordability, and health and wellness, the things that make our region competitive to other regions across the nation and even the globe. So a lot of the kind of internecine sort of battles between communities, which can be fun, but ultimately, you know, don't serve that bigger picture when we're, you know, when we're at odds too much against that. And yet the regional piece doesn't exist unless we have those strong local kind of deep dive community engagement pieces. And so about a year ago, I took over the leadership of the Bloomington Chamber as the Bloomington Chamber president, and my membership piece has been transferred over to Laura Rail, who many of you probably know from Twin West, and I have taken over for the regional chamber as vice president of economic and community development. And the way I view that is really a putting our money where our mouth is in terms of representation and communication and engagement with the suburban community as part of the region. Have done that consistently with the South Metro, and now want to be able to do that with the West Metro. And you know, saying it is one thing, doing it is another. So over the next however long I'm working for the chamber, that's my #1 priority. And so whether that's connecting West Metro business and civic organizations on the policy front, on membership, on all the sort of things that chambers are supposed to do in terms of connect and convene and grow, that's what I'm here for. I know Victoria has been a tremendous asset and will continue to be. Cut me a little slack, because I don't think I'm going to be able to just fill her shoes immediately in any way, shape, or form, but I will be here and I'll do the best I can. So that's a little bit of the overview. I don't know if you have any particular questions or concerns. Feel free now or anytime in the future to hit me up on those. Yeah.
Anybody have questions? Go for it.
Brent, I am curious, and this is sort of in the weeds, but do you anticipate that this structure, that this cadence of this meeting will continue, or do you think that there will be a change?
I see no reason why it wouldn't continue. You know, I'm looking forward to talking with you and in particular Gary around, you know, what's been working, what doesn't, and I'm open to, you know, to whatever does. I think in a certain sense, there's a, you know, and again, I'm new to this and new to you, but you know, want to be able to make the most of, you know, our time together. So it's not just another meeting on the calendar, but there's, you know, that you're all feeling it's useful. I just from what I've heard so far, just the updates I think are really important, and the connectivity. So you know, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't change that. I think the piece that will be you know, challenging is bandwidth. It always is. You know, for all of us, I think our plates are overfilled. So I do have had a similar sort of presence, you know, in Bloomington for a while now. St. Louis Park, New Hope also has kind of regular monthly meetings, in Golden Valley. You know, I think if we take all the different cities that are covered under the geography that Twin West represents, it might be tricky to do a monthly meeting where I'm the only point person on that for the chamber, but we'll figure that out. That's all logistics. So, you know, is there something in your question that you're concerned about as you ask it?
Not necessarily. It's just that, you know, obviously the chamber and the council, the regional council are going through a big transition, and I just didn't know if there was going to be a trickle down impact to the business council.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that I foresee about that. You know, you know, I hope not. I think, and I don't know a ton of the, you know, history in terms of the particulars with this group. I will say one of the things that I'm committed to is is being able to, not come in with some sort of, hidden agenda or prescribed sort of notion. It's really, that working relationship. If we as the chamber, disagree or have some issues, at least we're bringing the business community and the voices together. I don't have a problem with all sorts of different opinions, but I think it's the being able to work together and being able to, to be at the table that's the essential component, and that's what I'm committed to.
Well, I have a few questions. First off, Brent, I want to make sure you understand, and you probably don't have the history here, but another great resource that's in this group is Dan Goldman. He chaired the St. Louis Park Business Council for years, very successfully. I'd have to say that when he was chairing it, I have to say it was probably the most successful period that the Chamber and the Business Council there had in St. Louis Park. I don't know if you agree or not, Dan, but that was my observation as attending those meetings. And I really feel that the business community and the business councils are kind of like a mirror of what's going on and what brings businesses engaged into the chamber. I know that in our April 4th meeting, we had, I think, over 100 people at this meeting. And of course, that was crisis mode with COVID, just hitting in the first lockdown. But I feel that, at least in my business, I deal with a lot of small businesses that are basically should all be members of the chamber. And they're not focused, because of their day-to-day crises on a normal year with the local services that a chamber offers. And now this year is extremely difficult for businesses because they're just worried about, trying to adapt to the change fast enough to keep the ship afloat. And I guess I'm really looking forward to maybe members of this community, of this business council and others, so we could build the business council network throughout the metro area. I think it's a great tool. I think it's a great way to get businesses and the local governments and the schools all together. And I think it's a great resource for information.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gary. I'd agree completely. I should mention two pieces. One on the business side, certainly personally a lot of familiarity with West Metro businesses, not through chamber work, as members and also as part of partnerships that I talked about around those larger economic issues. But in particular, the concern and the piece that I'm going to remain an advocate for, whether it's the membership or other ways of engagement, is the vast majority of small to mid-sized businesses that don't feel the chamber serves them well or doesn't understand, how we're here and how we're here for them, especially with the Minneapolis Regional, I think, being thought of, or rightly or wrongly, as for the big companies and larger Minneapolis-based organizations. I'm here to advocate for the vast majority of small to mid-sized businesses that really are strong economic engines and have the potential for growth that, frankly, those big companies don't have. Target's not going to triple in size in the next, I don't know how many years. But some of our small to medium-sized businesses definitely will. And the other piece on the personal side, a lot of familiarity. My daughter went to St. Louis Park High School as an open enrollment. She went to Fair School in Crystal as a middle schooler. And I also, before I worked for the chamber, worked for YMCAs in the metro area, helped with the merge between Minneapolis and St. Paul as organizations, and spent a fair amount of time working out of the New Hope Crystal YMCA. So pretty familiar and love the West Metro area. So I'm happy to, even though my brother lives in Plymouth, so I won't get into the problems I have with him in that, but otherwise all good.
Well, thank you. Anybody else have comments or things they'd like to share about the topic?
Okay.
Well, with that, any other announcements? Well, Brent, looking forward to working with you, and Victoria, I hope we still stay connected. I don't know what the transition process you have with you folks, but really looking forward to the continuation. And now this is our last meeting of the year, and I think we're going to start up again. We should have a little discussion about that because we traditionally for years we're on the 4th Thursday, and now we've changed a little bit. We're on the 3rd Thursday, I think. That's what it's kind of worked out to be, hasn't it? Or is it
no,
on
well,
the 4th?
no. This month we're
4th.
meeting weird because of the 4th Thursday of November was Thanksgiving. So December is always different.
And we're doing the 1 hour format, which 8:30 to 9:30.
Yep.
And so with that, is that what we want to continue starting 2021 with?
So that would put us at January 28th. That's the 4th Thursday of January.
Yeah.
And Gary, just so you know, the 3rd Thursday of the month is when we have our Rotary board meetings.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's why we always put the 4th Thursday.
And that's why the 3rd sticks in my head.
Yes.
So the 28th of January would be our next meeting at 8:30 as it stands. I'm just asking, is everybody in favor of that? Okay, I see everybody's head shaking. Thumbs up. Great. Okay. Well, with that, we got our next meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Everybody have a great holiday season. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see everybody in January.
Great.
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
attending
Thank
the
you,
meeting.
Victoria.
Yes, bye,
Thank you, Victoria.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
See you Monday,
Bye
Mark.
Bye.